And welcome to the Aaron Katzman Show. I'm your host, Aaron Katzman. We speak about your life, your money, and your investments. And as always, we're coming to you from the spiritual and soon-to-be financial capital of the world, Jerusalem, Israel. If you like this content, please hit the like button below. If you've not yet done so, please subscribe to both our YouTube channel and to the podcast. And if you think somebody may actually find this interesting, hard to believe, but if somebody will find this interesting, for all the millions and millions of viewers out there, you go ahead and hit the share button as well and share it with those people. So I came across an interesting article on Market Watch. It was a question to the Moneyist column. Back in a previous life, I used to actually be a writer. I was a retire mentor for Market Watch. So every now and then I go over there and I see what's going on. I found an interesting question. I'm going to focus on the question and then my response, and we'll leave the money. You didn't give bad advice, but I'd like to talk about it because it's an interesting question. Okay, he says like this. Your recent article, No One Writes About Rich Guy Early Retirement, resonated. When the letter writer asked, when is enough enough? You replied, when you say so. I related to this man. For my part, I have cash, IRAs, and investments worth $3.9 million. I worked in finance, private equity for several years and reaped financial rewards. Now, here's where I get interested. I'm 51 and my wife is 60. This is important because the question is about maximizing our golden years when we are both in good health. My kids are now young professionals. I have a house valued at $2.7 million with a mortgage at a 2.5% interest rate and a balance of $400,000. I don't want to pay it off because the arbitrage of cash return is too favorable. I have another property in Europe which has no mortgage and is valued at $1.1 million. I currently have 3 jobs that in combination create a fair amount of stress. An advisory job to a private equity fund with an annual income of $300,000, a board position that brings me an additional $140,000, and a non-paying job in a startup that could yield a very high value. My operating costs are not greater than $175,000 when capturing mortgage, property taxes, healthcare, and other living expenses. I'm able-bodied and don't need to be fully retired, however, I'm mindful of maximizing time and travel with my wife during the window of her 60s. My advisory job is pretty stressful. While the cash income is great and the hours not overly taxing, there is an energy drain aspect. I'm thinking of walking away. The $140,000 annual part-time income means that I'm largely covered. Is it time to let go and focus on my board position in the startup? The sad reality is that I cannot let go of the startup. My goal is to build up as fast as possible an operational team so I can reduce the stress. Interesting question. So, the first thing that I would advise is get rid of the $400,000 mortgage, right? The cash arbitrage means maybe let's say it means you're making $6,000, $7,000 a year between what you're making on your cash and what you're paying in interest. For $7,000 a year, especially if you're thinking about retirement, just get rid of it. You're going to be saving yourself a lot more than $7,000 a year in mortgage payments, which means that you don't even need $175,000 anymore, right? It's going to drop it down. I don't know what the length of your mortgage is, but it's going to drop it down significantly in terms of your monthly expenses. It'll probably drive it down, I don't know, to maybe from 175 down to 130, 140, somewhere in that ballpark, which means, let's say 140, which means you're already a good way to answering your own question. Now, I think one of the important things is that the questionnaire is focusing on work-life balance. I love that. I think that's really, really important, especially when he says, I have $3.9 million of cash and financial investments. Throw in the fact I've got almost $4 million in real estate, property in Europe, which we can go to and it's fully paid off. I can pay off my mortgage. That's a pretty good situation to be in. And he wants to spend, kids are out of the house, wants to spend time with his wife, who's 9 years older. That's fascinating. I would say go for it with one caveat, and this is important. As I've mentioned numerous times, people who are 51 should not retire, okay? Or I should say different. People who are 51 should not spend their entire life traveling with their wife, right? It's not possible, okay? And then what? Okay, you take your 3-week, 4-week, a month vacation. Okay, and let's say you do that 4 times a year. Okay, you spend 4 or 5 months of the year traveling. What are you going to do for those every 7 months? And you're 51 years old. You're sort of in the prime. As somebody who's a year or two older than that, you're still in the prime of your life when you're in your early to mid 50s. I can tell you about that. So that's what scares me more than the financial aspects. But in terms of the financial aspects, if you pay down your mortgage, and this is the other thing, I would keep your the other job, right? The job that's paying you the $140,000 a year, and I'd keep the startup for two reasons. One, because that can solve all your problems. If it hits and you end up making millions more, then you can do whatever you want, number one. Number two, the reason I would say to keep the $140,000 a year job is because I don't think that you necessarily have enough cash investments at 51 and stopping to work, and there ain't gonna be Social Security for a while, and you're gonna be draining down your investments to live. And right now you say $175,000, but I do have news for you. And that's if you do decide to retire fully and spend the golden years with your wife, you're going to be spending more than $175,000 a year. I can almost guarantee it. Okay, so keep that in mind. Your expenses are going to go up and your income is going to be zero, except to try and generate whatever you can do from the almost $4 million you have in investments. People are going to look at me and say, Katzman, you're a nut, right? But let's say you need $200,000 a year and you're 51, right? If you start, and there are a couple of really bad markets, right, you could have real issues down the road. So I wouldn't necessarily do that. I would get rid of the mortgage, right, so that my annual expenses drop down to like 140. Then you add your travel and whatever kicks it back up. Number one. Number two, I would keep that other job, which is bringing in $140,000 a year, right? So you're going a long way, if not all the way, and covering all your expenses. But if you have to dip in, and take out $35,000 to $50,000, that's 1 to 1.25% of your portfolio. That's not an issue. That doesn't faze me. The other issue of keeping working is because it gives something to do. Okay, I realize that the private equity job is giving you lots and lots of stress, so you don't need it, right? You can just bail on that. But keep that other $140,000 a year job because it keeps you busy. It's not full time. You've got flexible hours, like you say, keeps a foot in the game. And you can enjoy yourself. So it's sort of the best of both worlds. Financially, it gives you a huge cushion. It means that you delay really having to take out money from your investments. And you can let them sit and grow, which is huge, number one. Number two, it keeps life more interesting because, like I said, at 51 years old, to sit around watching Netflix with your wife is not a great plan. So Quentin, had you sent me a message, I think his name is Quentin, that's the advice I would have given you. Okay, pay down your mortgage, pay off your mortgage tomorrow. Get rid of your mortgage, get rid of the private equity consulting job, keep your $140,000 a year job, keep the startup job, and spend time with your wife. I think it's actually a great idea. You're 51, she's 60. Yeah, spend good time together when you're still healthy and able-bodied and really, traveling isn't going to be so tiring, but you can really enjoy it. I think it's a great idea. But just do things smart, okay? You've been tuning into the Aaron Katzman Show. We speak to you about your life, your money, and your investments. If you like this content, please hit the like button below if you've not yet done so. Please subscribe to both the YouTube channel and to the podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll speak to you soon.